Hi, Jess Lahey here for my very first inaugural Answering Questions video session. So here's the sitch. The situation is this. I do a lot of speaking on the road, and at those talks, I offer to answer people's questions. And when I offer to answer people's questions, I say, go to the contact form at jessicalahey.com and email me your questions. And they do. They email me a lot of questions, and it's great, and I love it. And the questions are fantastic, and I make it really clear in an auto reply that I send out that I answer a question a day. So, and I answer them in the order that they were, that I got them. And I am so behind because I get more than one question a day. So here's the situation now. So the situation now is that I'm holding in my hot little hands, single-spaced, I think this was about 60 pages of questions that I have yet to answer because I'm so behind. So here's what I've done. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start answering questions in bulk, meaning I will do these little video segments on sort of the frequently asked questions version of this, and then I'll email you if your question is sort of included in that frequently asked question so that you'll know I'm answering your question on my website. And I will not name your name, say your name. I will respect your privacy. I do want to pick out maybe a couple of emblematic questions that sort of represent the topic I'm talking about today. So I will email you back and let you know that your question is going to be answered. And I'm so sorry. Some of these are really old. I'm just so behind. I'm answering questions still from 2016. That's how behind I am. So that is a disgrace. Since I promised I will answer everyone, it just may not be in the email format you were expecting. And I'm really, really sorry. I know there's a question in here from a girl, a kid, and I believe she put urgent on it. My parents are ruining my life. And I'm really sorry because it's probably not urgent anymore, but I'm also pretty sure your parents didn't ruin your life, because I remember and looking at that question and thinking that it was about the fact that your parents were taking your phone away. And while I respect the fact that that does feel urgent, and I would be very upset too if someone took my phone away, I'm pretty sure your life has not been ruined, but I will get to that question too. I'm sorry, sweetie, that your parents took your phone away. Okay, and by the way, this is not my house. This is KJ's house. I'm at KJ's house because we were just recording our podcast, #AmWriting with Jess and KJ. And she has this great setup with great acoustics and lights, and I figured I would use it until I have my own space, which I do not have. I live in a very small house with very little space for things like this, which is, this is so fantastic. She's got all the equipment. So here I am answering questions. Today's question is one I get most often. So usually I do my talk, and then at the very end, someone says, okay, this is all lovely. Thank you so much for speaking. Now, I am all about the learning. Seriously, all about the learning. But my son / daughter / whatever is just such a perfectionist. He or she is so caught up with the perfect score and getting the perfect grade that he / she can't focus if he or she gets, a 92 instead of a 100. That's a really, really common question I get. And first of all, I'm going to ask you, the parent who's probably listening to this, to really consider, do you really just care about the learning? You may believe that you do, and you may believe that you put the sort of juju out there in the world with your kids that you really do just care about the learning. I'm going to challenge you on that a little bit, though, because if you are constantly talking about the scores and the grades, and you're constantly putting the checking the portal, checking the portal. Yes, I have written about that extensively. My feelings on the portal are out there at the Atlantic and the New York Times. Not such a fan of the constant use of the portal. If you're putting the report card up on the refrigerator, if you're flipping out when your child comes home with an A and then you greet them with silence when they come home with an F, then maybe you're not conveying the message that really all you care about is learning. Maybe you are conveying the message that what you really care about is the grade. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't care about the grades, because an A and an F are not the same thing. The problem with our current system is that often learning and grades are not tied together. Often learning and grades, mastery and grades are two very different beasts, but let's stick with the fact that this is what we've got right now. Let's say your kid comes home with a 92. What they really wanted was a 100, and they're spinning their wheels and freaking out and crying. Let's just start there because that's the question I get most often. Okay, for kids like that, first of all, I want to recommend an article I wrote for the New York Times for my column a couple of years ago. The column was called The Parent-Teacher Conference, and it ran for 3 years, so there's lots of good stuff there. You can dig in and check out all that stuff. But one of the articles I wrote was how to help your child worry less and do more. And in that article, I was talking about those kids that spin their wheels over perfectionism, that can't get started on a rough draft because they're so worried about it being perfect, or kids that freak out over a 92 when they wanted a 100. In that article, I recommend a book called When A Isn't Good Enough, and I love that book. There's another book in there that I recommend that's like the academic version of that book. They're by the same author. So I recommend that article and the book that's in there. Now, there's lots of great advice in When A Isn't Good Enough, but my advice is often this. In my talks, I focus on the fact that one of the things we have to do as parents, if we really do care about the learning, if the learning is truly what we care about, we have to focus on the process more than we focus on the product. Because the kids are getting the message that product, meaning grades, scores, honors, trophies, whatever, are the important things that need to be on their transcript. That's happening all the time. So at home, let's let home be the one place that we can actually talk about process, where we can talk about the learning. So let's say your kid comes home with that 92 and they're freaking out and they want a 100, or let's say your kid comes home with a 68 and what they really, really want is something that's, a little more within the A range, that is 68. One of the things you can do is just stick with the process conversation. Say, sweetie, so what did you do to get that grade? Oh, you got a 68 and your friend got a 98? Well, what did your friend do that you didn't do? What did you do that your friend didn't do? Did you have a conversation with the teacher about maybe what you could do next time? A story I talk about in my talks that used to be completely humiliating and now is just something I talk about. I find that if you talk about the humiliating things, not only can they help other people, they also become less humiliating over time. One of them is that when I went off to law school, I sort of thought of myself as a bit of a smarty pants, and I needed to study, but I didn't need to take those practice exams because that was stupid. Because only people who really who really are struggling need to take those practice exams. So I didn't take them. And my first grade I got back in civil procedure was a 68. And my first instinct on getting that 68 was to quit law school, because that makes perfect sense, right? Because you get a low grade, your first response should be to quit altogether, because clearly, no way can I hack law school. I'm just not cut out for law school. And by the way, if I quit really, really quickly, no one will ever have to know. I can go back to my old job and it'll be great. And it just wasn't for me. But luckily, my best friend at the time, her name was Mary Moore Parham. She's no longer with us, and she was a very, very special person. She ran into me as I was headed to the dean's office, and she said, well, you could quit law school, or you could go talk to the professor. So she held my hand, literally, while I went to go talk to the professor, took me to his office, and I talked to him about how to do better next time. And he gave me all kinds of really great feedback about how I studied and what I studied and how I constructed my answers. And he pointed out to me that I did know my stuff. I just didn't know how to show it in a way that they want me to show it on law school exams. And so I learned to give them what they wanted. And guess what? The next semester I did great on my civil procedure exam. I actually don't even remember what I got, which is probably pretty telling. I probably did fine. But for kids that are really spinning their wheels about those things and have what Carol Dweck would call a fixed mindset, they think, oh, well, I'm just not cut out for that, I have to quit. Or, oh, I'm not cut up for that, it's hopeless. Or, oh, check that out, I'm just bad at math. That happens a lot to kids too. If we as parents can focus on what they plan to do next time, what was useful this time when they studied, what was not useful this time when they studied, and how to focus on next time. If we could get our brains out of these emergencies we're dealing with today and focus on next time, how to be better next time, how to do better next time, how to be smarter next time, how to plan better next time, how to strategize better next time, that shows our kids that we really, really care about the learning and not necessarily the number that's scrawled at the top of that test. If we can start showing them that we care about the learning over the number with our own behavior by pushing ourselves to try things that cause us to learn more. KJ and I were just talking about the fact that one of the podcasts we have to record soon is about goals. I'm a huge fan of talking to kids about their goals because not only does that help us learn more about our kids, it helps us understand what the leverage could be for our kids. So if our kids want to go to a certain college, or our kids want to get a certain grade so that they can be on honor roll, or our kids want to get a certain grade so they can stay on the soccer team, that becomes our leverage to help them be better next time. Oh, you didn't do well on this test. Well, in order to achieve that goal that you have out there, you're going to need to do better on the next test. So let's focus on doing better for that goal of yours. KJ and I are going to be recording a podcast about goals. My next question I'm going to be answering in this video series is on how to help kids who don't really care too much about school right now care more and invest more. That's the next set of questions I'm going to be answering. In the meantime, focus on process over product. Put your money where your mouth is and really, really model and show that you care more about the learning than the product, because in the end, the learning is what's going to carry the day. The learning is what is really important. The learning is what's going to preserve your kids' interest. The learning is what's going to preserve that relationship between you and your kids' teachers, because if nothing else, your common goal should be the learning, not the grade. And I'm not an idiot. I know we live in a world where the grades and the scores are important, but if we can start focusing on the process of learning and the process of showing our mastery, the grades will follow. So I will go off now and email everyone who had a question around the lines of perfectionist kids. My next question that I will be answering will be about motivating kids who coast, because that's a big important topic, and one that I talk about a lot when I go to schools to talk to students. Anyway, I don't want to get onto that question. I love talking about this stuff, so I would be headed off to that question. But I want to close up for today. Thank you so much for being a part of this. If you do want to ask another question, which clearly I'm not going to get to for a while, you can go to the contact form here at jessicalahey.com and ask that question, and I will try to get to it. And if I didn't answer your question fully today, sure, get back to me, and I will do my best to get back to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy this new series. Bye.